Good morning. I'm Beth Gantz. I'm an SBDC coach at the SBDC at Lorain County Community College, and I'm excited to be joined again this morning with Rick Slark. Rick is a business consultant and is a friend of the SBDC and has talked to us before. So Rick, I'm excited to talk about this subject, freelancing. You and I have discussed it. We discuss it often with our clients, and I know it's kind of becoming more of a buzzword maybe in households. And so I wanted to get your take on what's going on with freelancing. You and I chatted a while ago, and you'd mentioned there were like 6 points that you wanted to talk about, and just kind of what's happened with freelancing, since the pandemic too. So thanks for joining me today.
Oh yeah, I've always enjoyed working with Lorain County and the SBDC there, and everything you guys are doing. And you and I have worked together several times, and it's something I find super enjoyable. A lot of our conversations go a little longer than normal because we kind of get riffing off of each other, but yeah, I certainly enjoy it. It is such an interesting topic, this freelancing, and it's such a wide topic. There's so many ways we could go about it. But basically, as I think about it, I try to help people and give information that I wish I would have known when I first started. Right. It took me a long time to figure some of this out and to learn it. And some of it's new with me, some of it's not new with me. But the freelance is certainly an interesting way to go.
Yeah. And as you build your business, do you still consider yourself a freelancer, or was this?
I do. Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. I have several clients that I work with as a freelancer and doing several different things. So, one of the big ideas is that you build many revenue streams, that you don't put all your eggs in one basket and you have several different revenue streams. And one of the unique things for me was, even during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of webinars about pivoting and making sure you do this. And I did the exact same thing during the pandemic. I saw this opening where a lot of the small businesses were needing some help. And rather than build a business from the ground up, I just simply partnered with and became a freelancer with a company that was already playing well in that space. And so sure, it's what we call, we'll get into a little later maybe, is called moving up the lattice. Instead of the ladder, there's no more ladder where you're just succinctly moving up. But what you're doing now is you're trying this, and you see what all that leads, and that opens up a lot of opportunities for over here. And then over here, you find people, connections, networks, skill building, and you go, oh, I'll go over here. And then you move over there, and you start all kind of different ways, and you never know where you're going to end up. It's much different than just one step, then another, then another, then another.
Yeah, I love that lattice. And I think I do want to get to that later. And I just on a quick point on that, I think often people come to us and they're like, well, I have to do this one thing, and you don't have to do this one thing with freelancing. And I think that's great. I mean, definitely to help maybe brand yourself a little bit, you need to have a message about yourself, but we have marketing consultants for that and everything, but definitely you can dive into different areas and revenue streams. But you shared some interesting statistics with me, and just sort of how the just working with Zoom has changed since the pandemic, and kind of why this is the age of the freelancer. So I wanted to chat a little bit more about that.
So yeah, it's kind of a great question. So this was building way before the pandemic, this freelancing, and people were getting a little restless with these jobs and things of that nature. And for most of us, some of us don't even remember when our grandparents worked for a box factory. For instance, I remember my grandmother worked for a box factory for like 30 years, and she got this little watch, and that traditional story we all hear.
Yeah.
And that day is over now. And because as the pandemic has come, it's something I constantly say about the pandemic. The pandemic accelerated everything that was already happening. And so this was kind of happening in the background. And there was some of these, what we call early adopters, were already working, who's the crazy guy? There weren't even coffee shops then. Who's the crazy guy working from home? That's kind of weird. Right. And so now, because of the pandemic and the remote working and all of those things, that accelerated technology. And so the Zoom technology is just insane. Recently, I read from the founder of Zoom that in 2019, they were doing about 10 million people a day on Zoom. And within, I think it was June of 2020, they were doing 300 million people a day on Zoom. So, the year before, it went from 10 million unique people, participants, they call them, on a Zoom meeting per day. And now it's more than that now, but in 2020 of June, it was 300 million a day. And that just gives to show you. So what happened was the remote working, the technology advancements. And then what happened was the attitude began to really change of workers. They started working from home and became very disenchanted, many of them, with their job, working 9 to 5, sitting in a 45-minute traffic jam waiting to get to work, or commuting, or whatever they would do. And some of them were like, yeah, there's more to life than this. And that attitude then began to just ignite this freelance, what they call gig economy. And I think right now, and I've got the stat right here. Let me put my glasses on. I try to not do that with crystal clear. But in 2020, there were 59 million people doing freelance in the United States. And they think by the end of this year that it's going to be about 68 million by the end of 2021. Yeah, so the numbers are insane. That's about 42% of the United States workforce is working as a freelancer.
Wow. And I wonder how many of those are part-time, full-time, but still, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's a lot. That's a huge percentage of the workforce that are potentially sitting at home, sitting somewhere free, finding opportunities at maybe even outside their community.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, I mean, that's the neat thing about it. I read an article yesterday from Columbus. There's an HR consulting company in Columbus. They have 7 individuals that work for them. So that's the whole company is 7 people. One of them lives in Minneapolis. One of them lives in San Francisco, and the home base is in Columbus. But so there's what, four or 5 there. Yeah. So, I mean, they're all over the world, and they are a big player in the HR world. So you can do it from anywhere. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that's really cool, because then they have people from other parts of the country, they get to know people, and, it's not just about, you build a community, and you maybe, and then they know people, and your network just opens up even more. So, which I think is really great about it. And then you can also serve more businesses by having people from all over.
Oh yeah, it's much more scalable for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's talk about this freelancing 101 that we've talked, kind of you're thinking about it, maybe you've started, you want to start, what are some of the tips that you have? I know you talked about kind of these 6 areas that I want to go back to that lattice reference. So what are some of your tips for freelancing?
So I think that if you were starting out as a freelancer, that there are some concepts that I think are really fundamental to your success. And I think it's the way you think about things that, and so if you're a freelancer and you're just getting started, some of the things I'm going to say may seem a little controversial, but my goal is to pique your interest and at least get you thinking differently. And you may choose to go the way you were, but you also, you need to know there is another way. Mm-hmm. If you are a freelancer now, but you're beating your head against the wall because you're just not making any money. You have horrible clients. They don't want to pay you anything. They want you to do it for free, those kind of things, which all of us deal with it from time to time. I think some of these things may help you as well. So really the first one, and I think this is a prevailing thought through our culture right now, and that is to follow your passion, do what you love. You know, how many times do we hear that?
Yeah.
And I think this would be one of those things that could be a little controversial. I really think that following your passion is very idealistic. I think a better way to do it is to look at it in a way that says, what does the market pay for right now? Who is doing something in the market and they're making money at it? You know, just because you love doing this one thing doesn't mean you can make money at it. It doesn't mean that the market will pay you a living for it. Yeah. And instead of spending your whole time doing this thing and beating your head against the wall and being frustrated and never making money at it, a better idea would be to look at what can you do, what is the market paying people to do, and then find somebody in that space that you kind of connect with and follow what they do.
I love that point, and it is a bit controversial, I think, for people, but it's really, I think, across the board in most business, anything you choose to do, not everyone wants what you're passionate about. And it doesn't mean that you couldn't do it on this, like do it part-time, like more part-time, make a little money at it, but do something else that's bringing in money so that you can follow your passion on the side, you know, doing something else. So we have some clients who do that. They're like, well, this wasn't going to make me a lot of money, so I'm do this, but then I can still dabble in what my passion is. But also, you know, that's where the SBDC can also help you with understanding the market research, kind of knowing if that thing you're passionate about is going to make money. And if it's not, let's help you figure out what you can make money at.
Yeah, I've got a client right now I'm working with. He came up with this grandiose idea, and we did a market feasibility study on it, and we found out that this would not fly. Yeah. And so we're doing something different. Yeah. And here's the myth. The myth is that you're only called to do one thing. Right. Well, that's not real. Right. The reason you most often, the reason you really like what you do is because you're good at it. Right. It is being good at it, developing the skill, and then the happiness and the fulfillment follow that. There are a lot of people right now that are doing what they love to do, and they found out it didn't change their world at all. Right. They still, and every dream job that we have in our mind, this idealistic job, has things that we will absolutely hate. Yes. You know what I mean? So ask anybody that's living a dream job, there's going to be 10 things that they absolutely can't stand to do. Yeah. And it's just, you're going to wake up one day and go, oh, I'm living my dream job. Well, and I don't feel any different. Right. Right. So work on skill development. Cal Newport has a book, and it's called Be So Good They Can't Ignore You, that deals with this subject in a very, very good way. And I think that would be a really good resource for them. So anyway,
I'll pick that book up. I'll put that in the link when I post this. So
okay. Yeah. So be careful about following your passion and getting caught up in this trap that I can only do one thing. That's just not true.
No, I think that's fantastic. It's a fantastic advice. So yeah. How are you unique when you're a freelancer?
Yeah, this is the second point that I think that I made this mistake early on. And I think a lot of people make this mistake. If you want to make money as a freelancer, you have to be an outlier. You have to be different. Now, I don't mean you have to be brash and dye your hair blue, but I do mean you need to have something about you that is totally different. I believe that only outliers can make a good living as a freelancer. I just do that. You cannot be in the middle and be average. And so there needs to be something that you do, whether it is the quality of your work, whether it is your brand, whatever it is, there has to be something unique about you. You have to be, or your work, you have to be an outlier for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not just about whether, you know, I mean, some people think, oh, well, everyone's a marketing consultant. That's not true. Not everyone understands everything about market, you know, or everyone can do social media. That's not true, or whatever it may be. But
let me give you an example of that. So we talked about this one time. So wedding photographer or a photographer, right? There are anybody with a camera is a photographer now, right? So how do you differentiate in that space? Well, you might only want to do wedding photography outside in the fall, or you only want to do night photography, or you only do this or that. I actually have a friend that is a photographer, right? And the only thing he takes pictures of is city landscapes, Nashville, Philadelphia, whatever, at night. They're black and white cityscapes at night. That is his business. And the guy makes a fortune.
Sure. Yeah.
So he's not just a photographer. He is only a photographer that takes cityscapes. So who would want that? Well, a Nashville hotel would want that. A Nashville business would want that. A Nashville restaurant would want that. You see what I mean? Those kind of things. So you have to be on the edge. If you're just a photographer, it's going to be tough for you to get paid what you need.
Right. Finding that unique value proposition, and yeah, absolutely, is so important, really in any business. So let's get back to this lattice analogy.
Yeah, so
it's early in the morning to think of, but I really like this. Instead of climbing the ladder, you're climbing the lattice. That was great. I love that point.
It doesn't the ladder even seem a little I don't know, it just has a kind of a negative connotation to me.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And so instead of thinking in this, and I'm a process guy for sure, but instead of thinking in process and moving up, the best way to do this, especially if you're starting out, is to be a little more broad-based, and is to try something in your niche. Try this, learn the skill that you need in that place, learn the people that are in that place, learn the way it works in that place, and then you will meet people and there will be new opportunities from that point that will take you somewhere else. It may not be straight up, but it may be over here. So what's the point of that? You gain more skill development, you gain new people, better skilled people that you learn from, or you mentor or are mentored by, or things like that. And you never know where you're going to end up on this thing, right? You may move this way, you may move backwards, you may move over here or over here. It doesn't really matter, because what you're gaining is experience, what you're gaining is skill development, what you're developing is networking. And all of those things will help you get better.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And eventually you might find small niches of areas. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because if you start out and go, I'm going to be in this niche, but you don't really know what that niche entails or what it involves or what skills, you may not have all of that. So it's better to learn a variety of things, and then you start to go, you know what, I've noticed something in these 4 moves, I've enjoyed this the most, or I've enjoyed this a little, and then you move in, as you said, to the niche. Absolutely.
So how do you think you start like marketing yourself, or find the work as a freelancer, possibly even if you're still working?
Yeah, and I think that the majority of freelancers, we talked about the number of freelancers in the country. The number of freelancers that do it as full-time is fairly small.
Sure.
Yeah, it's probably, I can't remember the exact statistics, but it's somewhere around 20%, 20 to 30% of freelancers do it full time. And so most of the freelancers are going to be working and all of that. So that's a great question about the marketing and the mistake that most make. And that is simply stop trying to be on first page of Google. Stop trying to reach a mass market. Biggest mistake that we make marketing, especially in our culture today, to break through the noise of all of the tanning salons or all of the masseuses or all of the photographers or all of the cookie bakers.
Yeah.
To break through that noise, you're probably not going to reach number one on Google first page with your SEO. And SEO is super expensive, so you can't really afford it starting off anyway. And so my suggestion is to find a family. And I take that from Seth Godin, and I love it so much because of all of that it entails. But find your family, find the people who love what you do. I have a client that calls those people for him his raving fans, right? So find your raving fans. And I'll give you an example. So a couple of days ago on my Facebook page, there was this guy who has a really cool beard and he's got cool hair, sharp guy. And he was asking, he just moved into the area, and he was asking for a barber that could razor cut this beard, razor cut his hair. He was looking for some special stuff. And who is a barber that does that? And I watched the thread for a day or so, and one guy's name just kept popping up. They would mention a lot of different people, but after, let's say, 20 recommendations, this guy probably had 15 or 16 of the recommendations. That's what you want to do. Yeah. You want to be that guy that when somebody needs whatever it is, you are the person the raving fans recommend. Yeah. And that's where the goal is. So you want to go to this niche market, this small market, that people that love what you do, they're already persuaded that you're good. They're already persuaded that you are amazing. And you don't have to then argue with them about price, right? They're willing to, they're your fans. They're going to be your trumpeters and your spokespeople. Those are the ones you're looking for, and then begin to build from there.
Yeah, I think it's hard sometimes to maybe ask for those recommendations from people or referrals and things like that, but it's so important. And that's why, you know, we say to our clients, get testimonials, get that stuff on your LinkedIn, get that stuff on your website. Because it matters. There's the networking to help build those relationships.
Sorry about that. But yeah, there's one person I know that has what they call a testimony book. And we would call it as a referral book, or, you know, but what they do is they call it a testimonial book that they carry with them. And I even like that word instead of referral. I even kind of like that word just because it's different. And there again, we're talking about what makes you different. You don't have referrals, you have this testimonial book.
Yeah,
you know?
I like that.
It's kind of crazy, and it's a really cool looking book. It looks like a book, you know. It's not just so really cool. So when they walk into a customer or a potential client, they've got this thing that's different than digital. It's different than this, you know, there's a slide the little cameras that slide the pictures over and stuff. It's not that. This is literally a book that has a cool feel. It has a cool look. It's part of their vibe, right? And that's what I was talking about earlier. And so that's one way they do it. But it's really important, I think, that you put your work there, that if somebody saw your work, that they would absolutely, there's an artist in town that if I see a picture of hers, I know it instantly. And that's what I'm talking about. And she has, now here's the key. There's a lot of people that do not like that artwork.
Yeah.
But there is a small group of raving fans that absolutely love and are dedicated, and she can do no wrong. And that's what you want to be.
Yeah. It's, I think people forget that, you know, you have to, it's okay not to serve everybody. But the people you serve, be the go-to person.
Yeah, and let them find you. That's the important part about this whole idea of this marketing. You're not out looking for them. Many of you and me, we have the wrong clients, and we're babysitting them. We're having to give them discounts. We're having to do this. They're horrible to work with. We don't even like them, blah, 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 blah. These fans are different. They choose you, right? They choose you. And when somebody says, hey, who bakes cookies for the birthday party that I've got coming up? Facebook is filled with, here's the person to do that. They make the best cookies.
Yeah.
That's how you want to be. And here's the thing, 41% of freelancers get their work from testimonials and past clients.
Wow. Wow. That's huge. So that drives home that point of get people to talk about you and build that relationship so people will want to refer you and all that. And, you know, I know we didn't really talk about this, but just real quick for those listening, there are, you know, besides LinkedIn, Upwork, you know, there are other places to go to like try to get freelancing jobs. So I know we weren't going to talk about this in this segment, but I just want people to know a few, you know, I know people say things about Fiverr. There's all, you know, you can just ask on Facebook. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to find these opportunities, but I know a lot of people use Upwork for that, or through just starting word of mouth. So again, that's a whole nother topic and the SBDC can help you with how to get going on some of this. But as we wrap up, what are some, you know, final things you want to share? Like, you know, how, like, what are some tips for, you know, if you maybe are working, or how do you change maybe your LinkedIn around, or where do you even start? Do you just ask someone you already know? Kind of, how did you get started?
Yeah, so going to your point, it's one of my other tips. Do not wait to be picked. Mm-hmm. Remember in school, you're standing there and you're going to play whatever that is. I'll date myself, but we played like dodgeball or whatever. And you stand in this line. And of course, I was always the last person to be picked, you know. Has a whole lot to do with a lot of stuff. But anyway, we live in a world where you do not have to, there are no gatekeepers, and you don't have to wait to be picked. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things, how do people even know what you do? That's what you were talking about. How do you get started? What kind of thing? Number one, don't wait to be picked, and stop waiting to get hired to produce work. Mm-hmm. Start producing your work. Mm-hmm. Start baking the cookies, start doing the artwork, start putting the video on YouTube, start writing a blog, start publishing your stuff. It is scary as all get out to hit send, but hit send and start putting your work into the world, and people will find it. Not everybody's going to respond to it, but you're not looking for everybody to respond to it. You're looking for those raving fans, and that's how you begin to build it. You begin to build it by not being real salesy and promotional. Just start producing the work. Yeah. And you'll write blog posts and no one will find them, but keep writing, keep doing it, keep doing it. It will eventually begin to find its way. There is no easy way to do it. If you want to teach classes or whatever, stop waiting for people to ask you to teach the class. just start teaching a class. Hey, on this night, I'm going to teach a virtual class on Zoom. Here's the link if you want to come, and do a Facebook Live and do those kind of things and begin to put your work out there. I feel really passionate about that, honestly, is do not wait to for people to ask you to do something. Get your work out there. And I think that is really, really, really important.
No, I completely agree. And we drive that point home all the time with our clients who, with really any, even if they're baking cookies, like start posting pictures of your cookies, like start talking about, show videos of you making the cookies. So it's not just that consult, we think of freelancing as the marketing consultant, the graphic designer, but it's not, it could be someone doing cookies on the side, like it doesn't have to just be doing work on just writing for people or something like that.
Oh no, absolutely. What we're doing, most of it's not. Yeah, most of it's not. So I know a girl who, a woman, she's a young woman. She bakes these cookies, started baking these cookies in her house and handing them out to her friends and all that. Then she went to this coffee shop in town. And she said, hey, could I, like on Thursday, bake these 3 types of cookies, put them in? Well, what happens now is there is a line out the door on the day that her cookies are going to be there.
Yeah.
And people wait in line, not to get the coffee, but to get the cookies from this woman who does this work. And it's incredible. She's everywhere now. Yeah. And so that's a perfect example of that. And there's one other thing I want to say, and then, I know we're getting close to the time, is that no matter what you do, freelancing, we've talked about all of these things. Well, the final thing that I would like to say is to be a professional. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is that daily work on this asset that you are building. It may not be much right now, right? You may not have the greatest camera, but here's something I want to tell you, because I got hung up on this about having the best technology or about the best. People are not going to pay you extra just because you have the best camera. Mm-hmm. They just aren't. So stop letting that hinder you, because I know that hindered me, so I'm sure it hindered somebody else too. It's like, well, I don't have the best this, I don't have the highest technology. I can't be what McKinsey does. Well, of course you can't. Those kind of things. So I think that's really, but be a professional. Get up every day and work on your skills, work on your business. And there's a few areas that I just want to talk about. Number 1 is work on your craft. Work on your marketing, find your family, find that niche, pull those threads, just those small groups of people. It doesn't matter if it's 4 or 5. I know a guy wrote an ebook, sent it to his friends. They sent it to their friends. And this ebook ended up it was a huge number. Hundreds of thousands of people read this book by just sending it to their friends. And their friends and their friends. There was no big marketing campaign. That's how it works. Get up in the morning, work on your craft, work on your marketing, work on your networking. You've got to develop your network. Remember, 41% of your leads are going to come from your networking work. And then finally, get your finances in order. Mm-hmm. And this is the thing that I love about the SBDC, especially this area right here, getting a professional, being a professional. You guys are so good about helping people walk through that process of how to get their finances in order, how to get their marketing in order, how to get all of that stuff together. So you guys are amazing at that point, but be a professional, show up on time, look the part, do your work, and have a really good business. Even if your business is small, make that asset that you are building something you can be proud of and something that is really functioning. And like I said, the SBDC is amazing at helping in that part.
Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, for that shout out. We really do help with all of those areas and help you understand how to manage your cash flow, and we do have digital marketing consultants and we can even help with websites. So, well, our SVDC can. So, yeah,
Oh, sure.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today about freelancing. I know that we get asked about it often, and I love the points that you made, that you just start and it can grow, and it can be what you want it to be. And, maybe eventually some people will be full time with it. Maybe it's just some extra income to go on those vacations or whatever it may be, but just get started. So,
Yeah, get started. Great. That's great advice.
yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to chatting again. Thanks.
See you later.